start it off, we can do that at the beginning, that would be great.
Watching the sausage get made, I got it.
They're not here, so we don't have the schedule.
Yes, yeah, they don't normally do this.
East Hampton School District.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
because they're out of school.
No, I figured that. I just didn't on the agenda, so
It's under state.
Right.
I apologize.
that's okay.
Across.
Adequate notice of this meeting was provided by sending such notice to the Asbury Park Press, the Middletown Patch, and the Middletown Township Public Schools District website, and the posting of such notice at the August T. Minor administrative offices and each elementary, middle, and secondary school in the district. Roll call.
Sometimes I think about going back.
Mrs. Kennedy?
I like it.
Here. Mr. Cody?
Here.
Mr. Donald?
Here.
Mr. Donnelly?
Here.
Mrs. Griffin? Here. Mrs. Mayhew? Here. Mr. Nichols?
Here.
Mr. Little? Here. Mrs. Wall?
Here. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Should we do the presentation or open comment first?
Open comment first.
Okay, sure. So now we'll move on to an opportunity for public comment on agenda items only. Seeing no one come to the microphone, we'll move on to a presentation from Kim Pincus.
So there's actually a team of us who are presenting tonight. And this, if anyone who was here back in April recalls, we did a report out at that time on our work towards achieving the district goals that were established earlier this school year. And those district goals are in line and in coordination with our strategic plan. So at this point, I will turn it over to Mr. Alston. I think he's going to speak to our student success goal, specifically our personalized learning district mission statement.
And this presentation will be up on the website literally during the meeting. I just haven't activated it yet for the general public, but literally as I go back to my seat, it will be up on. Again, as students had said, we did initial district goals, still obviously up there from 425 as well. Very quickly, from this district goal of student success, we had already on April 25th discussed some school mission statements because we needed to first and foremost get that information directly from our educators through a series of meetings, our administrators as well. We wanted to ensure that we come up with a clear, consistent district mission statement, which is now intact. Again, it's there. I'm not going to read it for you, but again, what it really speaks to is, again, personalizing the experience for each and every student to maximize their potential.
Okay, so further updates on our student success goal. We did set a goal, secondary administrators and central office administration, as well as the staff in our secondary schools, to work towards increasing personalized learning opportunities for students who choose to participate in our dual enrollment programs. This year, we're very excited to announce that we are actually also, not only did we increase overall student participation in those dual enrollment offerings, but we actually increased the number of courses. So we introduced new courses that are eligible for those dual enrollment selections. That includes business ethics, international business, and human development. These are courses that students can take in our high schools, and the curriculum is aligned to different post-secondary institutions, such as Fairleigh Dickinson, Seton Hall, and Brookdale Community College. So while students are seat time in our high schools, moving through curriculum, they're also at the same time earning college credit for which they apply for. So as you can see, based upon our actual student participants for this current school year, in 16-17, we had 527 students enrolled in various dual enrollment programs at both of our high schools. Next year, and this is a conservative number, and I'm going to explain what that means in a second, we are projected to have 542 students enrolled in dual enrollment programs. That is slightly over a 1% increase. The reason why that's a conservative figure is because we have not finalized student registration yet. That is just first choice for electives and course offerings. So as we go through the summer and refine our student schedules, and we do that first pushback at the beginning of the school year in September where students are able to make some changes to their schedules, we do expect that number to rise. But that was just first time go around, pre-registration, students identifying those courses as first choice for them in creating their schedules for the 17-18 school year. In addition, we also looked at enrollment in our high school pathways. As you know, many of you sitting here today, we have the STEM pathway, the GLP-3, which is government law and public policy, and next year, starting September, we'll also be introducing our third pathway, the business pathway, or BMAP, business management pathway. This year, we currently had 471 students enrolled in one of those two pathways that currently exist, STEM and GLP-3. Next year, we're looking at 483, and again, that is a conservative number, and it is expected to increase because once the students come back in September, and those incoming 8th graders actually get to become more aware and familiar with what our pathways can offer them, many times we see students then indicate to their counselors in September that they want to be involved in one of those pathways. So we do expect that number is possible to also increase in September as well. In addition, our senior internship opportunities, this year we saw a 62% increase in the total number of students participating in our senior internships, and we're already in talks for how we can continue to see rise in those numbers for next year. Looking at different ways we can schedule it and also offer the opportunity to different students. The one thing I just want to say about all of these opportunities is that even as we're increasing the types of pathways students can enter into, or the number of dual enrollment programs, we're expanding this way, horizontally in number, with the same typical group of students that would be interested in these types of pathway or opportunities, and we're still seeing increase. So that means we're attracting new students to these personalized learning opportunities, even as we're expanding and growing the programs to include more offerings. So that's really what we're looking at. In addition, we had an elementary goal this year rooted in our tiered support system of intervention for English language arts. And I'm going to turn the presentation over to our elementary supervisor, Mrs. Angela Merrow at this point, to dive a little bit deeper into the work that she and Ms. Van Glan, Ms. Francie, Mrs. O'Hagan, and all of our elementary principals and reading development teachers really spearheaded with our elementary teachers, classroom teachers this year, to focus in on specific targeted interventions for our elementary students when it came to their reading skills and strategies.
So this is just a summary of what our goal was for providing tiered intervention in literacy. We modeled our program in Middletown after the state program, the New Jersey tiered system of supports. This is how New Jersey defines the 3 tiers of intervention. We modeled our program along with those definitions, recognizing that the goal of any intervention system is always to get students back into the regular classroom to succeed among his or her peers. So for our Tier 1, we are looking at students who are reading below grade level expectation or are struggling in some area as identified by the classroom teacher. The classroom teacher then determines which area of need is most pressing for that student and targets instruction to meet that area of need. Consult can happen with the building's reading development teacher, and the classroom teacher works with that student for a period of about 6 to 8 weeks in that targeted instruction, after which the student is assessed again. And if it is found that the gap has not closed, that student has not made adequate progress with that Tier 1 intervention, we can put Tier 2 into place. This is where the reading development teacher works with that student in either a push in or pull out scenario, 8 to 10 weeks in small group, again with targeted interventions based on a SMART goal. So a SMART goal will be developed at this point, and the student will work for about 8 to 10 weeks toward meeting that SMART goal. And while this is going on, the student does continue with Tier 1 interventions in the regular classroom as well. At the end of that 6 to 8 week period, the student has either met the SMART goal and now can go back into the regular classroom to continue with Tier 1, can stay in Tier 2 for another cycle if progress is being made. The student functioning and tier 2 is not working, we move the student to more intensive interventions in our tier 3. In tier 3, the reading development teacher pulls the student out of the classroom for intensive interventions, very small group of 1 to 2 students, for a period of up to 20 weeks. Assessment is done again at the end of that 20 weeks to see if that gap is closed, and we can push the student either down into tier 2 or back into the classroom in tier 1. Throughout the duration of this time, tier 1 interventions never stop. To support our intervention system, we have brought in the workshop model in our classrooms, and it's important to note with the workshop model, instruction is very needs-based. It's very tailored to individual student needs. We have also brought in the Fountas and Pinnell benchmarking system, which allows teachers to really hone in and determine what is the area of need for the student. Other programs like Foundation and New Dealer Pro have helped. And for our reading development teachers, we have brought in Project Read and the Fountas and Pinnell level literacy intervention for when they pull those students out and work on specific goals. We have also offered multiple professional development opportunities for our teachers. We have empowered some of our classroom teachers who are fully implementing the workshop model to host other teachers in their classrooms, to facilitate district-wide PD with the support of the supervisors and reading development teachers and outside consultants as well. And in looking at some of our data, taking our tier 1 students, our students who began the year reading slightly below grade level expectation, 46% of those students are now on grade level. Students who began in tier 2, reading 1 or more grade level below grade level expectation, 45% of those students have exited back into tier 1, and 86% of our tier 3 students have exited either back down to tier 2 for 1 instruction, or were found to be eligible for IEP. So moving forward, to continue our program into next year, our SMART goals are linked to instruction in the SOAR program. So students who are entering the summer program will take their SMART goal with them so that the instructor can get a good understanding of where the student's weaknesses lie and continue to instruct toward that goal over the summer. Intervention data will also follow the student into next year's class so that the classroom teacher can begin interventions immediately upon receiving the student. The teacher will have an idea of where the weaknesses are, where the struggles are, and can teach to them right from the beginning of the year. We have continued PD for differentiated and small group instruction to refine teachers' tier 1 skills. And we plan on full implementation of reading workshop in all elementary classrooms for September.
So to this intervention system, to the point of that, I just want to add that as we in the central office are meeting with the curriculum supervisors and directors and the elementary principals, one of the common threads of the conversations during their summative end-of-year review meetings is their excitement and their they're so proud of the work that their staff, their reading developmental teachers, and their classroom teachers have put into this effort this year. And when they look at the overall big picture, in K-5 this year, as students moving into 1st through 6th grade next year, the number of students who are reading at grade level is significantly higher than in the years past. So the fruit of this labor really comes out in those conversations when you break down that information with the building principals and the supervisors. They really are proud of all of these efforts, and especially of the classroom teachers who have been working really hard in the classrooms to get the students to really dive deeper into where their needs are and provide that targeted, specific intervention to help those individuals become better readers and writers. Thank you, Ms. Harrow. Our next goal focused on our middle school students. If you see the trend here, we had goals that were specific in increasing the personalized learning opportunities for our high school students. We really dove deep in our elementary and providing and creating that tiered system of support for our elementary students when it came to reading. And in our middle school, I'm going to invite our literacy supervisor, Mrs. Cindy Van Glan, up. She's going to speak about a pilot that we implemented this year in all 3 of our middle schools to further assist our English language arts middle school teachers in also identifying and being able to work towards and instruct towards the specific needs of our middle school students.
Good evening, everybody. So last year, we formed a group and we decided through teachers, our literacy coaches, and teachers to get a data system that we could bring in for the middle school to do the same type of analysis that the elementary school teachers can do for reading. And that diagnostic is called iReady. iReady is an adaptive diagnostic, which what it does is when the students take it, it adapts to the level that they can perform at. So it adjusts up or it adjusts down to help identify students' strengths and needs. So then it gives a prescriptive diagnostic of that to teachers so that they can pinpoint instruction specifically for each student that they get. So over the last year, teachers in all 3 middle schools have been implementing that with 3 different times that they administered the assessment. They administered it in September, they did it again in January, and they administered it again in January. And from September to January, we have decreased the numbers that are in intervention or students that aren't meeting grade level expectation to, at least you can see from 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. The percentages are from the entire population. That's including special ed as well. This did not differentiate just on grade level and students below grade level or your students that don't have IEPs. This took every student into account. And with exceptions to students with IEPs that could not perform the assessment. We wanted everyone to try it so that we could see what we would get from the results. And we're still looking at it. Can we get your middle thing here? And then again, just like the elementary school, we still have the same goal in mind, and that's on here with literacy instruction and finding with multiple measures how to individualize each student's instruction. And then again too, we are finding the instructional supports within the classroom. And you can see again, we have fully implemented writing workshop, and we are going into the initiation of reading workshop. We're looking to focus with 6th grade and spiral that up. And we had the reading and writing strategies, and with the iReady, there was an online component that there was, you'll see in the next slide, there we had 2 of our middle schools, Bay Shore and Thorne, who piloted interventions. Our literacy coaches had a block that they were able to identify students through the iReady components that had students that were below grade level. And they targeted a sample of those kids to see how we can start to develop the type of intervention that we have going at the elementary into the middle school. It's important for us to make sure that we are looking at students across the grade levels to make sure that they are not being missed. And I think that the teachers at the middle school level are working as hard as in the elementary level for ways to make sure they're meeting the needs of students. So if you look even here, there's all the development, all the professional development opportunities that we've provided, building-wise, district-wide, formal training from our literacy coaches, and constant support in all different ways. And this was the same chart that was up first. So if we go here, so in the intervention pilot programs, we identified students using multiple data points. They broke into small groups. This was in both different middle schools. We had our literacy literacy coach over at Bay Shore. She worked with her small group, and the literacy coach at Thorne worked with her group. They identified them through all of these means. They provided targeted goals, just like elementary. They monitored student growth within iReady. There is a growth monitoring tool that they are able to give assessments along the way, but we were very cognizant of not to over-assess students because we don't want them to feel like it's always like they're taking a test. It was definitely geared to making sure it was just monitoring their progress so that we knew how to readjust the approximations we made for interventions. Okay. So this, and if you look at this slide right here, this shows for Bay Shore, out of the 11 students that were in this pilot, there was a scale score of every student making at least 26 points or more in progress. And that, I'm very proud for these ladies that targeted these students at middle school. Because in middle school, we all know that motivation can be one of the key things, and these teachers were not only pulling some of the neediest kids that sometimes go under the radar because they don't have IEPs, but they were finding them, they were finding ways to engage them and motivate them to make gains in this fashion, like 27-point gains here, even when you're looking at that at 13 students at a scale score. In middle school, for me, when I think of that as a previous interventionist, that's a large, that's victorious. So I'd like to see how we're going to make that. So it's looking like that across all 3 buildings for any student that we have that might be falling below that grade level in those middle school grades. And then here, intervention across the middle school to moving forward. Continue PD for differentiated and small instruction in Tier 1, just like elementary. Beginning of implementation of reading workshop, because research proves that reading workshop is the best way to motivate kids, student-centered, and it helps them practice the work that they need to become fluent. And utilizing the elementary model of intervention. We want to really look to see how we can move that intervention and help it grow into our middle school.
Just one question. In terms of the transition from elementary school to middle school, you talked about the tier system in elementary school and going to middle school. How does that process been working? Is it smooth, or is it sort of you have to re-identify kids? How's that handoff? We talked about elementary schools year over year over the summer and soar. So now you have 5th graders going to 6th grade. How's that transition work?
So their SMART goals will follow them into the summer program as well. And their SMART goals will also be kind of turned over to the INRS teams and to the literacy coaches at the middle school so that they can work hand in hand with their classroom ELA teachers to still provide targeted instruction on those specific areas where those students have weaknesses. And as Ms. Bangla just said, the goal next year is to bring the tiered level of support that Ms. Marrow just addressed, the 3 tiers of intervention, is to expand upon that into our middle school settings. So those levels of intervention, those tiers, will be available for our students in middle school next year.
So it'll be similar for them?
Yes.
We want to grow it up and to make it all work for everybody.
Now we have the data, we have the tools, we have the professional development and the resources to provide that type of targeted intervention at our middle school level. That was really one of the goals of piloting this program this year, to see, did it give us the ability, the information we need to be able to provide those types of interventions at a level where we see gains. Does it have positive net results?
Would you say there's a large number of children that are identified in middle school? In other words, all of a sudden they go from elementary school to middle school and then they become someone that needs tiered. In other words, I would assume that the majority of those children would have already been somehow identified in later grades in elementary school.
Yes.
So the data in middle school, is that just kind of, so how does that?
It's having the assessments that test the students against grade level so like 6th grade level expectations, and where do they fall in meeting those specific grade level expectations. Like we had the Fontes and Pinnell ERA leveling systems, K to 5. iReady really takes that type of leveling system to be able to track and measure student progress towards grade level expectation at the middle school level.
So it's getting to be more seamless.
Yes. Yes.
Now you were saying that you could crank it up or crank it down, and with your 26% improvement, I would say that you were cranking up more so than down, correct?
I think what, I don't remember exactly what Ms. Bangla was speaking to at that point, but I think it's the test self-adjusts to the student's performance.
So that has nothing to do with these numbers. When a student's taking the assessment, when it says it's adaptive, if you were going to say you logged in or you started taking the test, you come across a series of questions that are either too easy or too hard, it's going to adjust to what you can personally do. So then it will move up if you keep getting answers correct. If you keep getting answers wrong, it's gonna keep going down. So that's So it adapts to what your specific ability is, to the passages that you're reading, the questions that it's giving, the text complexity, the level of vocabulary, and the different components that it has, whether it's informational text or whether it's literary text. So it depends.
So with that data, did you see it going up or going down?
I think it all depends. Right now, I think that the instruction that's going on in our classrooms and the way that the writing workshop and what reading workshop's going to do for our kids, I see that our intervention levels are going to go down and that grade level expectations are going to be met.
And we've already seen that this year at the elementary level, because last year was actually our pilot year of our tiered system of support at the elementary level, and this year we're already starting to see the fruit of that labor, in that we're seeing students, as Ms. Merrill pointed out, moving out of the tiered levels of intervention at a greater rate than what we had last year at the same time last year, at the end of the year.
I can give you one example of that. Just from one elementary school, there was a second grader who went into a classroom at an 8 at a DRA, because we're still doing DRAs, and she exited at a 28. And that was specific tiered 1 and 2 interventions, because you had the classroom teacher who was being supported by the reading development teacher, and they were really pushing in on one skill at a time to help that student grow. And the growth was, when Ms. Pekas talks about the growth and the excitement, it was that exciting.
So just to put that in layman's terms, because I'm listening to her say 8 to 28, and I know she knows what that means, and she's excited about that. A level 8 is really equivalent to not even mid-year or first grade reading ability. So that's a second grader starting this year who was at least a half a year below reading level in September. That student not only recouped and brought themselves up to, but they actually met end of year benchmark for second grade. So they made a year and a half almost progress in their reading ability in 1 year.
Yeah, okay. Are you going to expand this program next year? This is a pilot, correct? Are you going to implement it in other schools? What's the future?
So iReady was implemented in all 3 middle schools.
Right.
Why it was a pilot is because we were just dabbling in administering the assessments, getting the teachers and the students adjusted to taking the assessments, and giving the teachers, just not to overwhelm them with too much information at first, but how to analyze the results of the assessments to inform their instruction. That's why you started to see already, with a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of using that data, we're already seeing positive gains in students' reading ability. Now next year, we follow the same suit that we did with elementary, in year 2, and now we start providing professional development and additional resources that teachers can use in their classrooms to teach to those deficits that they now know how to identify. So if you're like a doctor, now they know how to read the lab results. Now we're giving them the prescriptions and the other tools necessary to identify and remediate those deficiencies that they can now identify, because now they actually have real data, to target, to zero them in on where the problems are for each student.
I think you're touching on my question. This iReady identifies the children who are below level, but does it also identify the children who are losing ground?
So because it's administered multiple times in the year, yes, we're able to see, is growth consistent throughout the year? If a student starts to demonstrate that, so it not only does it identify for us the students who are below level, it also identifies if you're on level or if you're exceeding expectations. At every point it's administered in the year. So if you were on level in September and now all of a sudden mid-year you're below level, that can be easily flagged for a teacher. And so now they can go and have a conversation with a student and really set specific goals as to why are we not maintaining progress.
Or if you're above level and now all of a sudden
Same thing. Yeah. And that's what allows us to really adjust and individualize the instruction, to keep every student moving along that continuum, of growth that we want to see.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
It is.
It's really giving the teachers the information they need to really differentiate and personalize instruction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so in terms of our public predictions and community partnership goals, Mrs. Walker reported out in April. We had really met all of our goals at that point, so there were no additional items at this time to update anyone on, but we did put the link, if anyone is interested, to revisit that April presentation, April 25th, thank you, Dan. Presentation is there to see the update on those goals. And the last thing, the last two goals that we're going to speak to, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Austin to talk about first our technology goal.
Thank you, everyone. So with respect to technology integration, the first piece of this goal is a continuation again from April 25th. We had talked about common sense education, and in particular going out within our one-to-one Chromebook environment from grades 3 to 12. And of course, grade 2, we also have many coming in with these Chromebooks. We knew that we needed to continue to teach digital citizenship, and not only to our students, but also their families. So to that point, personalized learning, getting back to that for a second, we also administered, or actually successfully had an innovation fair where all of our schools were invited. It had over 200 students on showcase with over 141 projects, again, based on their passion that they were allowed to pursue and given that time, from elementary all the way through high school. Their talks, all of this is actually archived on our district website, right on the main page under district news. So again, amazing. We were completely blown away. What was amazing to that as well, as we learned as adults going through from place to place, we also wanted to celebrate this accomplishment. So very briefly, common sense education. All 17 of our schools actually met that district challenge, which we set forth within our goal to certify each of the schools. So again, what that really came down to is having at least one meeting as a minimum in each of our schools. And we actually exceeded that, we had 20 of them, including PIC, back in November. In addition to that, obviously, or I should say, they say you should have at least half of your schools. We said all 17 schools need to be certified for this instruction. Again, it's a great baseline for us to continue to grow because they set very targeted pieces for us to actually go through in terms of digital etiquette, with respect to creative work, and you name it. Posting online, all of those pieces are covered via this curriculum that our educational technology specialist taught, including even Mr. Herbert, who's here tonight as our cameraman, in addition to many of our classroom teachers through our library media specialists as well. So very excited about that piece. And the final piece to report out on, with respect to our ever-changing district website, that continues to grow, pictures continue to go up online, and we know we needed to streamline that in addition to launch a district app, which was actually successfully launched last week. So we were able to get that off the ground, and just to quickly show you, I'm going to go to our website. And if you scroll under our district news, forgive me, you can download either on iOS directly for free or district app, which streamlines directly our information. So whether it's social media from Facebook, Twitter, you name it, all of that is met there in an activity stream. Our YouTube channel for MTBOE in terms of all these videos are now actually actively listed there. I'll continue to go back, and we will, as a team, will continue to make sure they are listed videos. So that is actually more open to everyone in the public. But obviously not only iOS, we need to meet also for those who are on the Google platform as well. For Android devices, same thing. That's also available via Google Play Store as well. So we want to continue to evolve this district app. There will be surveys coming out and more information, including the Power School, MTBS Power School, will also be online. Pay for It lunch system is also online. We're really excited about bringing information directly to all of our parents and their families. So I don't know if you have any questions, but let's brief that. Thank you.
I can't speak for the whole board, I can only speak for myself. Thank you so much. I think you not only met, but exceeded your goals for you by the district. Okay, we move on to, I need a motion to approve the minutes for May and June. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we'll move on to the report of the president. I only have one thing. Mrs. Gribb, I'm going to hand out to everybody a resolution in opposition of the Predo education funding proposal. It's a first reading of a resolution that we are going to adopt as a board, and Amy's going to give us a brief summary of it.
Right, you can actually adopt it.
No, okay. So we're adopting it.
Have it as part of your business. I mean, this resolution captures the information that the district has put out in regards to this proposal. The proposal that was put out last week was a
could certainly do that, or the inconsistencies in the reevaluations of the property tax. To your
Right,
point.
something that we could get everybody in the state on the same page with.
And I think that it's not our intent to discourage fair funding for other districts. It's our intent to make sure that we get our fair share and that we're perceived along those same lines. For example, in suburban districts, sometimes the thought process is that we don't have some of the same issues that maybe other districts, urban districts, might have. But when you look at a community as big as ours, that's as socioeconomically as diverse as ours, we want to make sure those indicators, all of those indicators, we have 8 Title I schools, so all the indicators that would cause a need for additional resources for urban or rural districts also could impact us as well. So we want to be perceived we want to make sure that those indicators are really being looked at and evaluated.
So I guess my question is, if we have this resolution, and we adopt this resolution, then where does this go? And what do we do with this? And then how do we go about doing one for the delegates assembly? Does that make sense?
Where did this all come from?
This
was something
was we developed based on what we thought was the best.
We as your administrative team,
Yeah, Amy and myself,
as a request.
as a request of the board. Yes.
I'm just curious where it came from.
Well, I think it was a request of the board
It was.
for us to, make sure that people understood how we're impacted by this and to share that information. And that's what we, I thought we're charged with, and that's what we tried to do.
Do we mention that that we disagree with the funding formula itself? Like, I know it's mentioned in here, but it talks about the proposal, which I think is for next year. Are we also making a statement that in general, the formula that's being used, right, I think there's an adequacy number that's, right, so in other words, are we also, the formula itself?
And we're making a statement that there's components of the formula that are not consistent.
Because I think in the resolution part, I think we talked about the proposal for next year. But are we going to go farther and say that the actual formula itself, we don't?
I mean.
You know what I mean? Like, in other words, like.
If the board wants
I'm asking, because I think.
If the board wants to change the wording, that's fine. This is just what we drafted.
I'm just making sure I'm reading it correctly, so.
Well, we did say that the 2008 state funding formula, that it's based on a community's property tax base and needs of students in the district, but at this time, those items are not assessed consistently throughout the state. So the formula cannot be implemented fairly if everybody's not on the same playing field as far as evaluations specifically.
Right, but it says what's required to make it fair.
Right, right.
It doesn't say that currently, the way it's being done.
Well, it's not fully funded. I mean, the funding formula hasn't been fully funded by the state ever, and that's, something that we mentioned can.
Okay.
We would rather
Gotcha.
see that funding, first of all, we'd rather see it be implemented only if all districts are on the same page as far as where they should be with evaluations and so forth, and it's also not fully funded. If you look at our state aid notices that we receive, it tells us what our state aid is, and then it tells you, and that's our capped amount. If they fully funded the formula, the aid would be higher.
Okay, I just,
Yeah, no.
I got you. Thank you.
And again, this is a draft for the board that we developed. If the board wants to make changes in wording, the board, you don't have to act on it. This was just what was requested, so.
Well, you asking to adopt this tonight?
Well, that's up to the
Well, I mean,
board.
because the good thing about it, if you adopt it tonight, you can send it to the governor. I'm not saying that we can't make up another document.
And share it with
later on.
our local legislators.
Right now, if this is something that we want to do, they're going to be voting on this very shortly, that this would be something to
It's
adopt, to say down there.
Legislators.
Yeah, and the local legislators have been very responsive for us. Senator Carrillas, Assemblyman Declan O'Scanlan, Serena Galasso, Freeholder. I've met with them both at Trenton, going down and having conversations. I've had conversations since then, and they've been very generous with their time. They have a deep understanding of what the issues are, and they understand Middletown's concerns, and I think we're being represented fairly.
I just want to say that as it is
discussion about this and supported, the state funding and the impact it would have on property tax at their meeting, at their last meeting as well. And it's their intention to approve a similar resolution in their next meeting. So I just want to point that out as well.
This is something that really bothers me, is that we knew this last week, and whatever happens in the next week, whether they do the revised numbers that you told us about or the new numbers, we as a board shouldn't be sitting still. It shouldn't just be you meeting with legislators. It should be us, it should be the community, it should be some of our employees, because whether they do this or they don't, the real threat is what happens next year. And we shouldn't be sitting down and waiting until the last minute to start joining the forces and going to Trenton. Well, we should be having group meetings, community meetings, get the community really involved, because what happens is next year when the budget comes, and if this does go to, tuition, what they say, people in the community are going to be saying, well, we didn't know about it, we didn't know about it. We got to make them aware, be proactive, get them involved. We had schools in the last couple of years that wanted to have a legislative committee, wanted to fight school issues like state mandated, and I said this last week, state mandating funding and stuff. We should be starting the ball now, like the issue is here and it's hot.
We have, this just popped up.
But it's one person
Hold on,
doing it, I'm talking, we're doing it as a board.
But this just popped up. We have a very short amount of time. I think they've done a great job to get this down and to say where we stand, and I like my, idea is that, listen, this is a great thing to move forward with, something else, and as you're saying, looking further down the line, but this just popped up, and, I think in a week's time, we've got this, we've got other people involved, the legislation's involved, I mean, so, we're moving as fast as we can.
I'm well aware that this popped up a week ago, but I'm also well aware of what they're doing in Tom's River and other districts where the whole community is involved. And they just found out last week.
Tom's River went your way, but hold on, let's just clarify something. Tom's River went your way that you're saying to go, and they were denied a permit because they had too many people. The way that our administration chose to go, sat in the Trenton House and were able to speak. So,
Jim, I'm not saying rent the 46 buses. I am saying get our community. You're the one last year that said we need to have a seat at the table. And the only way we're going to get a seat at the table is to get our community involved. We have one person going to the table, and I'm not saying he's doing a bad job. I'm saying we need to do more.
but I'm just bringing to your attention that Tom's River got the community involved and they didn't get a seat at the table. We did it this way and we got one.
But they have the
presented
community involved.
as well. It was, wait, if I could just interject.
Well,
Certainly, I would entertain we would entertain, as an administrative team, any additional support. We would also encourage all taxpayers in Middletown to communicate with our local legislators. I just want you to know that they're concerned with the issue. They are representing our community fairly, I believe, and I was very grateful to Senator Carrillis for inviting me. Senator Beck, who's not even our legislator, but worked with Senator Carrillis to put the press conference on down in Trenton. The support of Serena Tomaso, who was there, and Declan O'Scanlan, who was there, who are our local legislators, who do represent us, who are representing this issue fairly. And I would further say that I would welcome any additional community support in that process and encourage the community. I think that's why our board members charged us and asked us to come up with a summary, to communicate that summary. We've done that, and I think I don't disagree. We need to continue to do things with the community to continue to get this issue heard by our community, so they understand.
Maybe a suggestion, I'm not sure, you're going to have to tell me procedurally if this is the right time or not. But in the past, we've had a legislative committee. Is this the right time to make a suggestion that we bring back the legislative committee? Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we bring back the legislative committee for purposes such as this.
I don't know if it's a formal motion, but you're bringing that up for discussion, and
involvement and more board involvement, this would probably be the avenue to do it.
Maybe they don't want it.
Take George.
Well, we don't know until we
Well,
ask.
I guess I wouldn't understand, so this committee would be what, like, you're saying a community?
No, I'm
Like ad
saying,
hoc or
well, let's
something?
start with the board, and we can reach out to the community as needed, or they can reach out to us. Let's start with a committee of 4, and go from there.
Are there 4 people who would do it?
Well, can we, I don't really, I'm not familiar with it, maybe we can talk about how it worked last time. So in other words, you would, how would you identify issues? Would it be through, like, or would it be like community people bringing issues to the table?
Well, this is a hot issue right now.
Yeah, I got that, yeah.
Yeah.
So it would be, issues would come from different directions, and it would be just a committee that would come up with proposals for the board, or would?
Well, these are all good questions that probably we would take our time a little bit to go and have this brought up at our workshop, where we can get and research some things that we can do without, and then setting the committee up right and getting the people involved. I think it's going to take more time than just a vote here tonight to say, let's move forward with it. I mean, we could say, let's move forward and get the information and see how we build it and see how, we would put it together, but I think we need to know that information.
You have a retreat coming up, this might be a good topic.
What's that?
You have a retreat coming up.
To work on the legislative committee?
Yeah, I was just asking, I was wondering if you with that committee.
We could put it off if that's the druthers of the board. I'm flexible to that, but quite frankly, this is an issue that's ongoing. So I don't.
Great.
have-
I think there has to be a long-term strategy, as Joe mentioned. That I think Dr. George was asked to go just because of the time frame. It just was convenient.
Exactly.
He was able to go down there for the 10 o'clock press conference. It just made sense. He spoke to Danielle and myself, and he was aware. I believe he was asked to do that by the president, the chair. So he went down there, and I think this was sort of a Band-Aid, and it was getting our legislators involved. I think that's happened, but I think the longer-term goals what you're talking about in terms of going forward, because we don't know what the future is going to bring. This is sort of maybe an indication of potential future issues. So yeah, I think so. We should definitely
But I
talk
think
about it.
any
Dr.
other
George
time-
has to go specifically just to get down there, to get in front of people and get together, just to.
By Senator Grillis.
Quick turnaround.
Along with other elected officials, the mayor of Brick, the other legislators in different parts of the state that were representing their community, and superintendents from across the state.
Yeah, we didn't make any, it doesn't look, we didn't make any, I think he showed us the comments that you made, and, in terms of, it wasn't broad stroke, it was very Middletown specific to what was being, spoken about in terms of the money coming out of our aid. It wasn't any kind of broad comments that we would decide on as a board. It was just, you're proposing to take $1.179 million out of our state aid. We don't like that idea, basically, right?
I think any other time that we formed a separate committee outside of our committee of a whole, we've done some discussion on it, we've had more of a plan of what we're looking to do, so I think that's probably my personal opinion, unless there's a number of people who want to move it forward tonight. I feel like we need to know exactly what this committee is going to be charged with, if we have the interest of the board to be on the committee, and decide how we're going to pick and choose which legislation, whether we're for it or against it, which side we're going to be on, and how we're going to choose that legislation. So I think there's a lot more to discuss before.
My vision for this would be that this is a regularly scheduled committee that needs to discuss legislative issues within the state.
Yeah.
And brings them back to the board during a workshop to discuss.
I think we also have to be careful with partisan lines too, right? So
I'm sorry.
partisan lines, like in other words, some of this thing becomes.
Of course,
Well, I mean, that's, right, we're not partisan
of course.
entity, so I think that's something, that's the reason why I bring it up, how it's got, if it open to the community, I can see potential difficulties with that.
I didn't suggest, or what I suggested.
No, I was just saying that, in other words, there's things like, state wants to take 1.1, that's kind of obvious, we don't like that, right? But there might be other legislative items that become more party lines. So like, that's why I'm thinking, how would this be put together in a way that it's basically Middletown, it's not, because that gets very difficult, right? Because right now you could look at the legislature of the state versus the governor's office, right? This is sort of, could be looked at as a partisan sort of
Well,
struggle.
we're not reinventing the wheel. New Jersey school
Negotiation.
boards
Yeah,
meeting
agreed.
on a regular basis to discuss legislative issues within the state. I just think we model it after that. But, I mean, it's at the will of the board,
I think we-
how we move forward.
And we participate in other groups like Garden State Coalition, where we attend meetings and stuff like that. So a coordination with board members and administration to attend those meetings to see the steps that are being taken by those bodies moving forward, as something,
Right,
in
and-
this discussion for a retreat or whenever
I think
you
it's a
do as
good
a
idea.
board
But it
or
doesn't get-
workshop.
And
It's
we
good
do work with
discussion.
the
I think it's a great idea.
Garden
think it's the
State
next step
Coalition
for us.
never
I think
has
it's
sensitive
necessary.
partisan issues.
Nope.
So,
That's why I brought it
this
up.
can all be
To both your
monitored
points.
and
Yep.
for
To
a
both your
strictly
points.
bipartisan thing.
Yep.
This is, like I said, we're not reinventing the wheel, we're just modeling after what already exists to monitor legislative issues within the state that affect Middletown's education system.
Point taken.
Sounds good.
We're not, if we do it right, New Jersey school boards just put in your school notes how they met with certain districts and their PTAs and they met with their legislators. So getting our parents involved is not outside the realm. Why would New Jersey school boards take our PTAs to meet with our legislators if there wasn't an issue for our parents to be able to discuss?
No one's saying that we don't want to communicate with our parents. I think by
I'm not
our
saying that you
superintendent
say
reaching
that.
out to different newspapers and giving statements, and even just this conversation here on video that people can go back to, we are trying to get this out to the
I think you're taking what
public.
I said the wrong way. I'm saying that New Jersey School Boards does have a committee where they met with PTAs and legislators. So they have a reason to bring parents into it.
And we do give them our opinion and
We
our
do.
recommendation. We do,
On legislative things,
yes.
we
Okay,
haven't
it-
discussed legislation in a long time until this came up again.
Does the majority of the board feel that we want to move forward with creating this committee now, or do we want to discuss it further?
Discuss it further.
I'm fine with going now, but it's the will of the board. I want to know.
I've heard 3, discuss it further. Is anybody else? You want to do straw poll?
I'm fine with
Roll call, yeah.
going. I don't see
Fine
why we
with
can't
you.
go ahead and start.
Well, I guess anyone who's in favor of creating this committee, say yes.
Tonight?
Or tonight.
Yes.
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 The question was creating it now or?
Creating it now or
Start
just-
it.
Start the process. If you're interested, then, create the date now.
So we have Mrs. Minuit, Mrs. Griffin, Mr. Don, Mrs. Kennedy, would like to create a committee. And anyone who not wants to have further discussion to develop the committee and develop the charge. Can I ask a question? What's the downside of creating it now? What would be the downside of starting a committee now? We're not naming people to it.
And you're not going to trend tomorrow.
Right, what's the downside of starting it this evening?
Well, I think we did start this evening, and we said we want to talk further about it, but the resolution to put this forward, I think is the most important thing right now, and then...
Well, we already did that.
We didn't,
No, we didn't.
vote on
Okay,
it
We
yet.
didn't do
So,
any of this.
once we do
We've
that-
done nothing.
But to discuss it further and know exactly what it is that we're going to ask this community or this board to do is a great, I'm in favor of going that way. I'm just in favor of having a little more discussion than
like
at a
to
board meeting, voting meeting tonight.
I want to know what they're charged
definitely
with
interested in
and
doing
what
it, trying to figure out how
what
we're
the
gonna do it.
expectations are, and I'd also like to see any time previously that we've started a committee, we've discussed it for a while ahead of time to make sure there were enough people who who would come to me and say, I actually want to be on this committee. This committee is going to be a lot of work, and good work, and valued work, but we're going to need 3 or 4 people who want to do it, and then, I just think it requires further discussion.
So,
I'm fine with further discussion.
we have
I'm glad you said that, actually.
5 or 6 that would like that further discussion before formalizing anything, so. I guess now we can.
We'll put it on the agenda for our next, for the meeting in July.
And maybe board members could communicate with you between now and then.
Between now and then, yes, let me know if it's something that you'd be interested in being on. So that way we can not only create the committee next time if everybody agrees on it, we can also appoint people to the committee and get it all set up in the next meeting.
Does a committee always have to be a committee of 4?
No,
So it could be a committee of 2, with an alternative or somebody, right?
sure,
Bring
Well,
in
it's not
2 or
fine.
3.
sure, if that's what we, yeah.
Bring the information back to the board.
But that way, if I know who wants to be on it too, we can do it all in one meeting and have it all set up for next month. Okay, so we'll move on to, I need a motion to approve the resolution in opposition of the education funding proposal.
So moved.
Second.
All in, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. Okay, under the report of the business administrator?
There's another item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Also need a motion to approve the employment contract for July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2022 for the superintendent of schools.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, I don't know who I asked, you, Danielle, or Mr. Molino, could you explain for the record the difference between the contract that was awarded last year to the contract that's being awarded now?
There were several, and I said several, 2 or 3 language items or language updates based on the county superintendent requested of me. He reached out for me and said that the model contracts or his guidance in his office is changing some language. They're not major impacts, they're very minor. Some are to dealing with just have some legal updates on one is a payment on due 6 days, the timing of that. The law now, when the code says 30 days, so you want it 30 days in there. There's no impact to it.
So it's only language that's being changed, there's no money being changed, or
Oh,
dates being changed?
the dates are changed, that's the new date, and that's reflected in the.
I just think it's important for it to be on the record, because there's no copies that I know of that are out there for the public to see. So
The
could
original
you just
contract?
keep clarifying what the differences are in this contract compared to last year's?
Well, it's those 2 or 3 language items that came from the county. It's reflective of the new cap law that went into effect on May 1st.
What is
And
that
everything,
law?
the new caps that we had discussed about went into effect on May 1st. There's been no change on that cap law for 6-7 years. That went into effect May 1st.
Could you explain that a little bit better so that anybody listening could understand what the change in the capital was?
Briefly, or to the point, is that for 7 years, there was the Governor Christie came in and set the salaries for superintendents. So anybody that was sitting, once their contract expired, he changed those to a model that was based on the number of pupils in the district. And he did this across the state, except for some certain county vocational schools and some of the state-operated school districts. So for every other 580-something districts, you have now a structure for superintendent salaries. They were unchanged, so they were frozen at one level, and they were unchanged for 6 years. On May 1st, 2017, he finally, the Department of Education, through his guidance, updated those. They didn't do away with them. He just changed the numbers to reflect, again, 6 years worth of increases. And now he's put into place a new structure, slightly increased salaries, base salaries, and he does allow a 2% annual raise. So there hasn't been any raises before, now it's 2%. So this new
For the
contract
superintendent's contract.
reflects the new law and it reflects new term dates.
So our superintendent, who hasn't had a raise in 6 years, is able to get a small increase now?
2% a year.
And how many, and just so the public knows, all of the districts that you represent, how many is that?
We're up to 80.
And how many of them are doing this?
Everyone.
Okay.
And could you quote what the increase is? Or is that not allowed?
2%, annual. The salaries, there was 5 salary ranges in the 7-year-old law. It's now 3. So again, it's based on student enrollment. Dr. George's enrollment has gone up about, and I'm estimating it's about $15,000.
seconded. Any discussion, any more discussion? All in favor?
I have a question. This is a 5-year contract, right? Are all 80 of those districts doing 5-year
Yeah.
contracts? Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Abstentions?
I'm abstaining.
And I will be abstaining also.
Okay, we'll move on to the report of the business administrator. I need a motion to approve items 1 through 5.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I am voting no on, A, B, oh no, I'm voting no on 1, 2, 3, and I'm abstaining on 4.
I am voting no on number 1.
Okay, we'll move on to the report of the superintendent, Dr. George.
I just want to say that I thought that the conversation to this point has been very fruitful. I love the curricular report out on the goals and the public discussion about student growth and making sure that our students are academic success, individualized student growth, and academic success. I think that when we envision our meetings and our reports and putting our meetings on our website, it's a great opportunity to educate the public. I'm very grateful to our administrative team for their presentations tonight. They did an outstanding job. And all the educators, the teachers, the paraprofessionals that have worked with students to help them obtain these increases. Very grateful to all their work, and the administrators, building level administrators who led it, and the central office team for their vision. The second thing is that we wasted no time to get a professional development. We have had, over the last 2 days, a number of things going on, math training, educational technology training, and that's going to continue to run throughout the course of the year. And when I'm in those rooms, seeing our teacher leaders presenting to educators that are giving their time during the summer to learn and to be the best that they can be, there's no place I'd rather be. So, very grateful to all of our educators who participated in that summer professional development and who will continue to all summer long. I'd also like to say to the board, I am really grateful that for the opportunity to work with our students for the next 5 years. So for those of you that have supported that, voted for that, I'm very grateful. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed my 6 years in Middletown, and I'm greatly looking forward to the next 5. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any? 2 and 3. I need a motion to approve items 2 and 3 under the report of superintendent. What?
I had items 1 through 3.
Yeah, 1 through 3, I'm sorry. I
Okay,
should have done that.
Okay.
Thanks for
Sorry.
pitching for me.
Anytime.
I should have done that. Lost my focus a little bit, so I'd like to recommend items 1 through 3.
So moved. So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed on number 2.
Opposed on number 2.
Abstentions? Okay, we'll move on to technology. I need an approval for item number 1 under technology.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, do we know where these Dell desktops are going? Is it central office, is it in school buildings, is it?
It's throughout,
for kids?
it's various buildings, they're not all going in one building. They're for some offices and some teacher replacements, they're going throughout the district.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Under student services, I need a motion to approve items number 1 through 5.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Facilities, I need a motion to approve items 1 and 2.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Under policy, we did the first, do we have to do a first reading, Amy?
You don't have to take action on that. This is the first reading.
Okay, under curriculum, I need approval to recommend, approval on items 1 through 4.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Under finance, I need approval of items 1 through 9.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes. On number 2, the second line, it says, or permit or expire. Which one of these are expiring? Because I've never seen it listed in compound, it's usually
No,
labeled
we
down.
did this, we did the same resolution last year. This is anything that's being, that the board needs to approve of a renewal or an award gets listed individually on the agenda. But this, as we went over at the workshop last week, this verbiage is just required under this law to just let the board know that there are some smaller things that are not subject to board approval that, for example, some software renewals and some smaller service renewals and things like that, that routinely, as in the course of business, get renewed or not renewed.
I'm just curious what's expiring. It says permit to expire.
If you don't take affirmative actions, terminate, some at expiration rollover.
Oh, do we know what they are? That's what I'm asking. Do we know what's expiring?
Well, there are some services that we don't renew. I don't have the list of that, but it would be something the board would take action.
It just doesn't make sense that if it's expiring, just tell us what it is.
Again, there are many small things that we do throughout the year in the district that, for example, we may have software that we decide not to continue to use, so we won't renew that contract for that license for next year.
I
There
get
may
it's
be-
under the threshold, but if it's under the threshold, then we wouldn't have to vote on it. You're asking us to vote on it, and it says expire. I must have missed this conversation. I must have been in the ladies' room when you discussed it last week.
It's really just to inform the board that there are contracts that are routinely renewed or awarded or let to expire that may not necessarily be at the level of board approval, but it's done through the regular operations of the district. And we're required to have this language to report that out to the board.
I mean, that's just language in there that if we wanted to do business with a company again, they would reapply, the board would have to authorize their rehiring.
It's really more of a reporting out to the board that we are routinely reviewing these smaller dollar amount contracts and either renewing or awarding or letting them expire.
Is there any more
We
discussion?
do discuss in committee, if there's changes in things that are significant, that we'll need to know about and discuss that. But if it's over the threshold of board approval, they all get listed individually for board approval.
And also under this, we're voting on number 8, the approval of the unexpended appropriation. Is that on this vote too?
Yes.
Okay. I really have a problem with that. I really think we should be taking the 1 point whatever million and putting it toward tax relief. Considering that the state is looking to take money from us, and it's in the newspaper, I mean, quote for quote, that the taxpayer is gonna have to come up with the money that they're taking from us. I think it was Dr. George's quote, they're gonna have to coin up the money and make up for the difference. We have this money, we went to bank cap. First of all, we went to bank cap, so we should have enough money to do what we wanted to do for the next school year. The smartest thing we could do is put this money in tax relief, not put it in capital reserve where it could be used.
It also would show the case.
And it would show good faith.
But first, you gotta remember, you're bringing up bank cap. We went to bank cap because we have a pension liability that was slapped on us. So, there's a lot of other issues there to
We
say,
didn't
let's
use it for
take
the
this
pension
money.
liability.
We didn't use it
Let's
for the
take
pension
this-
liability.
We didn't use that that money, but we used money in our budgeted money that we had to make up for. And this here is areas that we can entertain, but it's, to not take it out of here right now is really uncalled for.
I'd like to make a statement if I could. When we were working towards referendum, our taxpayers spoke very clearly to us about not letting our facilities get to a place of disrepair. Whether I was speaking with senior citizens or we were speaking with parent groups, how did we get to a place where so many years had gone by since we had not done significant projects? Educational dollars are not meant for property tax relief. That is not within the funding formula. That's not what the monies that fund education, they're supposed to be put towards education and education-related issues. So I disagree with the statement, respectfully. I understand it. I'm concerned about the fact that our taxpayers bear 87% of the educational costs. I understand that. I respect that, and I share our need to be fiscally responsible. But I think we if we're going to have the conversation about educational dollars and the appropriate use of educational dollars, we have to look at the total picture. And the total picture includes the fact that, our facilities, if we don't maintain them consistently, 17 facilities valued at millions of dollars, and they get to a place of disrepair, that's when there's significant spikes in the tax rate, like they need to go out for referendums. So we're trying to work within our budgets to be fiscally responsible, to create safe, clean learning environments that our school community deserves. And this is the school budget. And from my perspective, that's where the school budget should be spent.
Dr. George, you also said the same thing when we went to BenCap, and we agreed. We all voted unanimously to go to BenCap because we don't want our buildings to fall apart. This is excess money out of our budget. Things that we did not put in for repairs of buildings, supposedly we put in for repairs into our budget. That's why we went to BenCap. And you gave the same speech for BenCap, that this is what it should be used for, and we don't want to let our buildings fall apart because of what people said when we went, and you know what, I changed my mind and I voted for that. To me, this is excess money that we saved, and we could help the community in the future for next year, because we know we're going to get hit with this. And for the statement of we were slapped with the pension liability, well, guess what? They just slapped us again with another 1 point whatever million if they do it again. So stop pointing the fingers about the pension liability.
But listen,
it
you
came
got
7 years
tonight
after
we
the
just
fact
approved, but
with
hold
us
on.
not knowing it.
Tonight we just approved an energy savings
Yes, we did.
audit. We just approved solar. That's
that
going
should
to be
help us keep our buildings up.
$13 million coming in that we have to do maintenance on some of these buildings.
And
We're
we
going to be bringing in
approved it.
And we all
$945,000.
approved it.
But, and that's great, but when you're looking to take this money that we have downsized, we were at $6 or $7 million. Now we're down to 1.5, and I think next year we'll be down probably around 800,000. But you need a little bit of a cushion in there, so let's look at
Amy
what.
had something she wanted to say?
I just wanted to clarify, as we spoke last week, this resolution is to simply allow the board to make a capital reserve deposit. This amount is a not to exceed amount. This is not an amount that we're committing to make the deposit for. If we don't do a resolution that says we can make a capital reserve deposit, then we're precluded from doing so. Also, this money left in this year's budget would not help with next year's budget, because we've already done next year's budget, and the surplus that's used to fund that budget came from last year.
$12.5 million investment in our buildings with the CSIP. But my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong,
What's energy savings? You're not making
I'm sorry,
that
what?
investment. That's energy savings, but we're not making that whole investment, but go ahead.
okay, well, my understanding was that it was supposed to pay for itself with the savings. So we are investing in our buildings. We're making a significant investment in our buildings.
With no increase to the taxpayer.
Correct.
That's my point. That's my
So
point.
why not?
So, but we are getting plenty of things for the taxpayer. We're getting many things for the taxpayer when you look at what we're doing. We're already doing building projects.
Well, that's what my point was. You're making my point. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad, because we're both on the same page. We're getting the HVAC units, we're getting significant things for our taxpayers, for our
Agreed.
buildings.
We are, but I think you have to look at it from this perspective of you're talking about 17 facilities that are, as we all know, are aging facilities that have significant concerns. And what we know when we look at our 5 years facility plan, there are many more projects that we can do within that budget or within this.
Well, when we talk about doing things
This
like
is-
renovating the hospital for the South, or looking at the media centers, those are things that we could be looking at fund out of capital reserve. We don't have capital reserve to fund that, the only option is to put it in your operating budget.
But we're not
We
making a
think
decision now,
capital-
though, we're just giving ourselves the option. No, but this is saying up to 1.5, but that decision still, first of all, to figure out if there's any excess.
Right.
Well,
It's not
then we-
definite yet.
Right. But we have to do this resolution in order to have the ability to do it.
I'm not saying cancel the resolution.
Correct. You're just asking like how
Because in
much.
years past, we have made a decision before all you guys that we could put some in capital, into our taxpayer reserve. That's not what I'm saying, don't do the resolution. I understand that we have to do it, but we also sat here last week and we heard where if they took $1,172,000, that we've already could clarify $500,000 plus to recoup some of that money. So we also have that money to put into our buildings and
That
repair.
that hasn't been done yet,
What we
so
discussed.
No, it hasn't, but it's
That's
been
not even-
clarified in public that it's there.
that's hypothetical.
I think it's about savings.
Jim, it's hypothetical when Amy told us $500 and some thousand dollars of
That was a
savings last
savings.
week.
That was a savings.
No,
That's what I'm saying.
Hypothetical is the
We could use that.
1.179 million. Nobody's voted on that yet.
We went
But
over,
we were well aware of that. And I'm sure Dr. George is going to give us the update on the new numbers.
It's not implemented yet.
we went over, what you're referring to is we went over items, there was like, I think I listed 3 items that we had for 17, 18, that we had come in under what we
Under bid.
budgeted. Right. So what the point of that discussion was, is if we realize a reduction in our state aid, we were trying to
Make up that money.
communicate to the board that there's already been some things that we've been able to gain some ground on that would offset that. That's what we discussed.
Right.
So if they don't vote on that, we have $500 and some odd thousand that we could use to
Well, not,
repair our
not
buildings.
not if they take our, no, not.
Not if they, no, if they, I said if they don't take it.
Well,
I said if they don't take it. Right
those
now, we're
projects-
talking about pretty reduced numbers. So,
No, but those projects haven't been completed yet, so those are
Correct.
potential savings, they're not actual
although the one
savings.
project,
One
I mean,
project,
the 3 items where we had done the bid on the turf and the track. The project's not completed, but the bid has been received, so that savings is going to be realized.
Yeah, but there was also an
The other one was on our
addendum there
liability
that-
insurance,
Right.
we realized a reduction in our liability insurance, and the other one was in some of the transportation bills. So, those are all things that we realize, but they're also not things, we have our capital budget done for next year, and we have the funding in place for that, so, you really, the things that you would realize in next year's budget that would be a saving, they would either offset things that come in higher than what we anticipate, or, they could potentially add to
Yeah, but the budget is set for next year.
I have a question,
We
wait.
haven't committed to any dollar figure to answer.
I have a question. When the dollar figure comes, you do have to come to the board to allocate it into that fund, right?
No, it's not something that the board votes on. We typically discuss it.
That's the problem.
Well, I don't.
Because no, the reason I say that is because I don't think sometimes it gets discussed in some and it just goes right there. That's what Joan is asking about, is we can make sure that when it
Any
comes.
allocations this evening.
I know we're not, I understand what this is. This is just to give you permission at the end of the year. If there are those funds, we can go up to 1.5. I understand exactly what it's
Within
for.
this specific reserve.
Fine, right, we don't vote, we don't say it, we cannot
You
do
cannot
it.
put any dollars. in.
Right, so we can go up to 1.5, but we can choose to put 200,000 into that if we want. We
Yes.
can't go past 1 point.
Exactly.
But now you just said, when the money does become available, whatever that sum may be, that we don't vote on where it goes, so then,
No, but they always move forward with board direction.
Right. That's
If
something
we as a
that we-
board came to them and said, I don't want that there, as a majority of the board,
I
it doesn't
think in
behoove them to
previous
do
years,
it
I think in
against
previous
us.
years, it didn't come to the board.
Well, no, we do it as in the process of finalizing the
Okay.
audit report.
I'm just trying to make something clear, that's all I was trying, I understand what you're saying, I really do understand
So we're gonna say
that.
there'll be further discussion in the.
If you think so,
Well,
And-
no,
okay,
There will
She's
be,
saying-
and,
if you think
you
so.
know, that would also be part of, you know, the board created that funding scheme and it's part of the discussion that
Okay. Whatever you want to do, thank you.
will happen.
We would never not discuss it with the board. We've never not discussed it.
We've always discussed it.
We have to discuss it with certain people, okay?
Oh, that's-
I hate to say that, but I do. And that's it, I'm sorry.
Is there any more discussion
Yes,
about
I
the
have a
nine?
question. I have a question about number 3, the 95,000. Is that an increase, or is that the same?
That's the same as last.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Thank you.
None of those are increased.
And in fairness, it's not the administration's fault if they come to me and if, when you say they talk to some of the board, not all of the board, most of our conversations are in the workshop meeting. And if Dr. George had said anything about this prior to me or just me, then it would be on me to repeat it to the board and not him. I'm just throwing that out there. But I have not gotten any information that you haven't had.
I don't think we're talking about the current board, and I just want to state from my perspective, and Amy, maybe you want to help me clarify, but I don't think there has ever been any major facilities appropriation that I am aware of that has been discussed with the full board, and I, for one, take offense to the comment, so
I apologize.
respectfully,
You take offense to
respectfully, I do.
but
I do, respectfully.
That's this perception that's out there. That's
Yeah,
why
well, it's-
I want, so you
It's a
know.
misperception that's out there that's coming from you, so.
Oh, okay. Take offense.
I think what we're saying is though that the administration will come back to us. I don't know, I honestly don't know what happened prior. I think we could rehash it, but I think
Okay.
going forward, I think we're making it clear what we want to do. And if Dr. George just talked to Mrs. Walsh as president, she should probably come back to us because they talk about a lot of things. But I think it's a good point that we want to be told, that we want to clarify. Even though we don't vote, I think it's other
And
stuff.
there is nothing as far as finance or facilities that Dr. George has said to me that I haven't repeated to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
The truth of the matter is, I don't care if the money goes into that fund. I don't think anything's wrong with it going in. I just think we need communication about it. That's all.
I guess we'll make sure that they do that, and hopefully the finance committee, some of the items.
Is there any more discussion directly related to the 9 items that we have a motion and a second
and a
for?
second, that's it.
Okay, all in favor of items 1 through 9?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, now we're moving 10.
I think that might be it.
Any other discussion on items 1 through 5? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'm opposed to I'm sorry, which number? K. Oh, 11K.
Abstentions?
I'm abstaining on that.
Number 4? 4K? 4K.
I'm abstaining on 4K.
On 4K.
Okay, I need a motion to approve items 6 through 10.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I need a motion to approve items 11 through 16.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Discussion?
yes.
You know, you can have discussion.
I'm abstaining on all Middletown South football coaches.
Okay.
All
right, well, we can get to that. All right, any discussion? Mike, did you have something?
No.
No? Okay.
Cover that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed on high school north golf coach and abstaining on the head girls lacrosse coach.
The head girls lacrosse.
Yes,
Is that
abstention on that. I'm voting no on number, I'm abstaining on number 11.
I am voting no on high school South 4th football assistant coach.
And I will abstain on high school South sports football assistant coach, and I will vote abstain on all lacrosse coaches. So you will be no for the football, abstaining. No, I'm abstaining on fourth football and abstaining on all lacrosse.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to, I need approval for items 17 to 25.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed on number 23.
Okay. On number 24, now, let's see. I numbered by job title, so number 2,
This is going to be a number instead.
no. Number 2, no. Number 5, no. Wait, number 25, no. And number 27.
Anyone else? Okay, did that cover,
All those.
Amy, that covered the addendum, right?
Yes.
Covered the addendum? Yep. Okay, nothing left to vote on. We move on to old business. Is there any old business?
Yes.
Okay.
Did we get the results for the July and August meeting?
Oh, the email that went out to the board, I think everyone that responded, I think everyone did respond. The changing from Tuesday to Wednesday, the voting meetings was fine.
Now, that was for July or July and August.
That's what we asked.
That's what I asked.
So for both days, we're moving the meeting to Wednesday.
The voting.
The voting
Yes,
meeting.
so the workshop and the voting meetings will both be on Wednesdays.
We also need to discuss whether or not to,
What is the date of that?
Thank you very much.
What is the date? of
I'll
that?
give you the dates.
It was, will be,
I thought you were asking to change it.
The voting meeting,
25th is now July 26th. And August 29th is now August
Is
30th.
there just one meeting?
July 25th was the 26th.
that's what we're gonna discuss next, Ernie. Ernie, that's what we're gonna discuss next.
the August, yeah.
That's what we're going to
So
discuss.
it's on
Oh, we have a
the
tentative.
29th, and it went to the 30th.
Right, we're changing, right, the 29th to the 30th of August, and the 25th to the 26th of July.
Thank you.
Also, we need to discuss whether or not we have a tentative meeting scheduled for, a tentative workshop for July. But we said we would revisit it to decide whether we felt we needed the second meeting or whether we can do it in one meeting in July. Any opinions? Dr. George?
From an administrative standpoint, we can do it in one meeting.
Okay.
We can absolutely, because it's later, it's helpful, actually.
Okay.
Well, if that's the case, then why don't we just have the meeting on the 19th?
Because it's later, he said it's better, it's later
Okay, all right.
to do it.
Okay.
Especially for human resources and.
You
And
guys-
Kim, just to follow up on that, we'll have our sensitivity training of some
Yes.
kind in closed session.
Yes.
Would
What's
anybody,
sensitivity training?
it was part of our district goals that Mrs. Griffin said that she would like our bullying training. We're not calling
Board
it.
agreed on it. It wasn't just Mrs. Griffin.
Oh, okay.
Part of the
Was that
district
last
goals
year?
last year. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
What is that?
It was part of the board goals last year.
We agreed to it, but after speaking with Kim, it's not really appropriate for us to have bullying training per se, so it's gonna be more of a sensitivity training, geared towards adults, not high school students. But Mrs. Pincus said she would, work on it for us. Yes? Is it, and we're gonna try to keep it brief, or should we try to make an earlier closed session?
I think it will be brief.
Okay. Okay, any other old business?
Well, the only, just, I'm sorry, if I could just stay on the theme of the calendar.
Yes.
You know, we were also talking about the October meeting, and that meeting is scheduled for October 23rd, which is a Monday. The school board's workshop is now extended to start on Monday. So, looking at it, as an administrative team, we would come up with an alternate date, and we wanted to suggest to the board October 30th, which is the following Monday.
You want to do Halloween, the 31st?
I don't think anyone can support that, but that's, you know,
Mischief night seems appropriate.
the workshop remaining the same, and then so we just would not meet that following week. Yes, yes.
Nobody's gonna.
So, I mean, we don't have to decide that tonight, but that was,
Okay.
if anyone wants to let us know if that's it.
But I realize I kind of railroaded over that. Does anybody else have an opinion on whether it's one or two board meetings? Does anybody have a problem with us going to one board meeting and not using the tentative board meeting
Oh, for July.
for July?
Yes.
I didn't mean to railroad that
As
on
long
people.
as the administration is okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Yes? Okay.
July.
So July will have one meeting on
26.
July 26th. And Amy will make sure that's taken off the website, that tentative
Yes.
meeting, so we don't
Yes.
have people showing up. And then we'll work on, everybody will go home, check their calendars, and next month we'll decide whether or not to do the October 30th.
I'm fine with the October 30th.
Okay.
I'm putting it here right now, it's on my calendar.
I just have one question. Does that mess up your bills at all, or getting it paid? Is that time?
It'll be okay.
Okay.
Okay, any other old business?
Yes. Being we discussed the legislative committee, and Danielle, you and I have discussed this, but other people have different opinions. Could you please give me the charge of what the finance committee is really about? I think people have different opinions of what that committee is about. When we spoke, I know you told me, you know, what you thought, but I'm curious what this committee really is charged with.
I looked at it mostly as, the way we discussed it, as really an educational committee, so that the board would understand what happens when things get transferred one place to another. I know Mr. Cody was interested in us focusing on insurance quite a bit, but that was the basic goal that I was understanding. What, is there something?
No, I'm just curious because I don't understand how the board is going to learn about when things get transferred and stuff from this committee. I mean, I don't know what else the goal is. I asked to have a meeting last week, and you did get back to me, by the way, Dr. Danielle did call me. So I don't want anybody to think nobody called me. But I asked to have the meeting, that we could discuss the potential effects and cuts of the state aid possibility. And then, you know, it was too soon after the board meeting that maybe it was going to be this week. I didn't hear anything back about whether it was going to be this week or not. But it doesn't kind of sound like we're going to be involved in that anyway. So I'm not sure what our charge really is.
I think if you had a meeting before the final vote, you'd have a meeting of a discussion of what ifs. Where if you have a vote next week, we'll know where we're at. We'll know where we stand when it comes to the state.
But what is our charge?
I think what we talked about when we were talking about the finance committee was there's various folks on the board that had questions of various different things. People were asking about insurance, people were asking about transfers, and what we said was the committee's gonna have to try to figure out what it is they want to get at. Because there's lots of different angles we can get to, but having what, 4 meetings or so being a year, it's gotta be about 30,000 feet. And we talked about getting more involved into, we were just talking about a minute ago, about some items where the district might be saving money. It's probably better discussed in a smaller group and finding out where this money's going. Because having all 9 of us sit there, we're really talking about the high-level budget presentation. So part of it was the four people that volunteered for it. What are the main areas that they want to address? In terms of the meetings, there's various different things you can address for the budget, right? We just talked about 3 items a minute ago, and you had a lot of questions on that.
I just think that there's got to be, you're saying there should be a charge. We didn't want to go through with legislation. I'm not sure really what the charge is.
Well, the legislative one, all I said was I don't understand what that was.
Well, I'm saying that everybody said there should be a charge when you have a committee. I am not clear of what our charge is, other than a learning experience, which that's, you know, I don't want a learning experience. I want to do something beneficial.
Okay, but that's what we're saying.
You said we were going to take direction from, we talked about taking direction from the board on where that money was going earlier. This could be a perfect topic of discussion for the finance committee, where you can have a more freer discussion than maybe you can have in public on where the money goes.
I don't understand the charge. I don't mean to be difficult. I just want a direction on where it is we're supposed to be, not just a free-for-all of.
As I understood it was
that.
I understood it to be, it's anywhere that we can look into for a savings.
See, I didn't take it as that.
You know, so if you're looking at insurance, you're looking at, you know, a lot of things that are out there, healthcare, to explore areas that you'd be able to maybe make a difference and bring ideas forwards towards a savings, if there is any possible.
If I can make a suggestion, I'd be happy to provide topics that I think would be worthwhile. I would be happy to submit those to the committee for consideration.
Coming from a great place, you're the business administrator.
Then it's an administrative committee.
I said submit topics for
Yeah,
consideration.
for consideration, not tell, you know, if you have ideas of where you want, I mean, you're the chair of the
I
committee.
really don't know, Daniel. I don't know what our charge is. I mean, we just pick what we want and go after it? You know, I mean, I don't get it.
If you look at the budget, the line items, is there something that you're concerned about? There's transfers going on.
Excuse me,
too much.
Dr. George was saying something.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Get to hear him clear.
I didn't hear.
Sorry. No, it's not your fault.
I'd be happy to work with the chairperson to develop an agenda for the meeting.
Thank you.
I think that would probably be the most constructive way to go.
I would still like to know what our charge is, though.
I'm just trying to.
The board asked for this committee. I wasn't the one who
I didn't ask
wanted this
either.
committee, so the board asked for this committee. We put together this committee, we talked about it, and now all of a sudden we don't understand it.
No, I appreciate that. And frankly,
You don't understand the committee you asked for. That's what I
didn't ask for it. I just want to know where we're going with it.
respectfully, and maybe I can shed a little light on this because I'm a little confused at this point also. We asked for a finance committee and we got it, and that's great, but we didn't have a charge. Tonight we asked for a legislative committee. We were told, wait for a charge. Let's discuss it and wait for a charge.
But the charge that we talked about in Pete was understanding where the money goes.
Every-
But wait a minute, both of you were talking at the same time. I'm
But
sorry.
every meeting, we have questions about the budget, and we're talking about taxpayer relief and all this stuff. That's constant. The legislative, all I asked was, first of all, you mentioned bringing the community involved, okay? But that's a lot different than board members meeting separately. So my point is, the legislative, all I asked, what does it do? A budget committee is kind of self-explanatory, right? There's details on where we're spending money. And if you want to talk about savings, yeah, we're talking about, okay, where can we be more efficient? And the board wants more information, but having all 9 of us listening to it might not be the best use of time. It would suggest that a committee look into the areas where we find most concern. And we have a big budget, so there's a lot of areas.
Perhaps I was misunderstood, or perhaps I didn't say it
Yeah,
correctly.
no, I think what you're implying is that the legislative committee proposal is treated different than the budget committee. And
Well,
we have
no.
budget questions almost every meeting.
Let me finish my point. What I said, when somebody asked if there was a community committee, what I suggested was perhaps at one point we could involve the community, but it would start with the board and 4 of us. That's the same as...
That wasn't what, as I was asking, because there was suggestions that maybe PTAs were involved. Because
That was not me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I was just asking questions. I had no problem with it. I
Going
think it's a
back
great
and
idea.
forth to things that were already decided. We decided that the legislative, we would work towards next month. That's a separate issue. If you're not comfortable with the charge of the board, which I believe the charge of the board was to, like John said, to delve deeper into different issues with the budget, whether it be insurance, whether it be the transaction. I think a big part of it is going to be educational for the board, because we're not business administrators, and I think there are some very simple, probably answers if the questions are asked to Amy about different budgetary issues. And as far as the insurance or savings that we can do, I think that was also the charges that we discussed. It was really going to be driven by the chair, and now Amy has volunteered to give ideas for what to work on with the agenda. I don't know how much, if we make it so specific, it makes it counterproductive. You want to be able to delve into whichever area of the budget you feel needs delving into.
Well, because one of the themes...
As the chair, I mean, not, or the committee.
One of the themes were that there were things that came up. For example, I think we were talking about a vehicle for security, right? And folks were wondering, well, where'd that come from? Well, it was addressed to the whole board because that's where our model is designed. But, I don't know if there's a budget committee, maybe there's a process where those type of items come out a little bit earlier, or maybe there's a more, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but it would be at least a better avenue to have some of those topics come up before we have, a meeting of the whole. And that was a suggestion, but it's hard to say where to go because there's so many items in the budget.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I just don't know, what direction? Are we gonna go to a direction where we're gonna be told we're micromanaging? It's not where we belong into that part of the budget, or, I
Looking
just
for problems
don't
that
know
haven't
what
even
person.
started yet.
I don't
But
know.
no, I'm not looking for problems, Danielle. I'm looking to see what direction we're supposed to go in.
I think she's looking
I'm
to...
just looking to avoid problems.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to understand, in terms of micromanaging, I'm not sure.
You
There's
might
other
understand
conversations.
it, you might understand it because you have in your mind what you think it's like. I'm not sure everybody has in their mind.
I'm
what
not
they
trying to
think it's
tell
like.
anybody what my vision of this. My vision was to keep it as
I get that.
committee as a whole. This wasn't my idea in the first place. I'm just trying to do what the majority of the board wanted.
My
I was gonna say,
understanding...
why don't we just keep it as committee of a whole and end that?
Now, my understanding moving forward, what I anticipated getting out of this was to look at the departments moving forward and saying, okay, we have so much curriculum that we have to rewrite next year. What is our projected cost? How many more textbooks do we need to buy? Where do we stand on what we need to go forward with? What is
That
the
would be a
projected outlay?
perfect topic for one of the meetings.
And that happens in every single department. Those are the kind of things that I want to know ahead of time, because that was what goes into planning a budget. Those are the kind of things that I'd like to know. And that's the kind of stuff we can bring back to the board and say, listen, we have these expenses that we're looking forward to because they need to be done.
Right, so what's the, is there a roadblock that I'm not understanding?
When we develop our budget last
We
year.
get that information in February to approve a budget in May.
Yeah, but we get that
I don't necessarily
Are there roadblocks? I guess-
we'll spend time in the workshop meetings talking about budget topics for several months. This is something that we start in the fall and
You're right.
talk about things that we're planning for the budget. So I don't agree with the assertion that we present everything in February. I mean, we go back, if you go back and look, we started talking about this October, November,
You
December.
do, yes.
Right.
But it doesn't always filter down to us.
No, we do it at committee.
No, we do it at committee of the whole. We did it all fall at committee of the whole. And thank you for pointing out an example of a small ticket item like trucks that were done within a budget when we had additional monies that were discussed with the whole board. Not individual members of the board, but discussed with the whole board. And we had a series of discussions, purposeful discussions, all fall as we move towards building the budget.
So you have a specific idea?
Very
Joe, do
transparent.
you have a specific
workshop.
idea of how you want this budget committee to go?
Is it frequency of meetings?
Actually, no, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
So you have no desire on a specific place you want this
I've
budget
got
committee to go?
suggestions of looking into student activity accounts, insurance, budgetary items. I mean,
So there's 3 topics to
What
start
three?
off with for your first meeting.
No, but is it the frequency of meetings?
I feel like I'm missing
Some
something.
of your ideas for consideration, so.
For instance, when I say specific curricular advances, we knew the New Jersey science standards were coming for more than one budget cycle. Those are the kind of things, they're coming. Those are things that we need to do. How much are we looking, what is it going to cost us? Ballpark it, because we need to plan for that. That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. And I know we plan, and you guys are very good at planning. But sometimes when we're looking at what we need, our wish list, what we vision that we're looking at for the district, we forget to take that kind of stuff into consideration. Because those are things that are just definites we need to do. That's the kind of stuff that I'm...
Like the public discussions we had at the workshop about putting money towards elementary libraries. Another example of monies that we took from the budget, spoke very specifically to the full board about how we were reallocating those funds to be district needs, curricular needs, and programs that we were going to be supporting moving forward.
That was a reallocation of funds this year.
With very public
What I'm talking about are the
workshop,
curricular advances
conversation,
that are coming
explanations.
down the pike in the future. Those are the ones that we can't get out of the way of. And then there are the ones that we're guiding ourselves towards that are advances.
Do you feel after this discussion that there are 3 or 4 topics that you could pick for the
I'm
first?
sure I could just pick 3 out of the hat if it's anything goes. I mean, I'm sure that there's something. My suggestion last week was, and I thought that was proactive to start looking at, I get it, we don't
You
know
are
what
the chair of the
they're thinking.
committee. If you have 3
But I sent
items
for a
that-
meeting, to ask if we should have one for this topic and.
Right, but the meeting,
didn't happen.
but that particular topic we had talked about would have been a meeting of what ifs. Next week, we will know for sure what we're dealing with and how we're going to handle that going forward. That is a perfect
I
topic
get
of
it,
conversation.
I get it, but what the answer that I got was, and you and I talked about this, it was too close last week because we had a board meeting on Wednesday, Thursday, but sometime this week would be good. It would be better, it would give administration more time.
I remember saying it would be better to give administration more time, and I don't remember saying a
For this
specific
week.
day.
No, it wasn't.
Or a specific
Yeah, it was for this
I know
week.
we wanted to do it, and I know we had discussed, doing it in the beginning of July.
That was the
But that has to,
original date,
but
yes.
that has to be worked out with Amy, and the administrative office when they're free.
Yeah, I haven't had any conversations with
Yeah.
No, I didn't, Danielle, you and I had the
Right,
conversation.
we had the conversation, and my personal opinion,
The point on this week, though, the point on this week was Monday night, I attended with other board members, the Crossroads celebration, and that was very nice. And thank you to Mike, and Ernie, and Andy for attending. Tuesday night, we have a board meeting. Thursday night, we have negotiations. When we say this week, we are, a lot of boards, or a lot of school districts are slowing down. We're certainly not slowing down. We're gearing up for negotiations at this point right now.
reach out to Amy with a couple dates that work for you in July and a couple different topics, discuss topics, pick them. I think Sue had volunteered graciously to take some minutes so the rest of the board could be updated on what you discussed and
I would also be happy to
provide
suggestions.
of which you do not have to take, but, okay.
Yeah, get it started.
Is there any
See where
other
we go.
discussions for old business? Okay, we'll move on to new, oh, I'm sorry.
I got one question. We received a letter as what, Dr. George, did you ever look into that about that student? And not particularly that student, really about procedure, how things are done. Remember that? I don't know how to get into it.
You asked me, and I
Yeah.
gave you, it's a student matter, so.
Yeah, I don't wanna get into
I don't want
right.
to shed any light, but absolutely.
Procedure, we're gonna
Yes.
do something. That's all. I
Yes.
just wanted to bring that up. I don't
Yes.
want to, because yeah, it's too personal.
Okay, is there any new
I know
business?
exactly what you're talking about, thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
we're addressing it.
Is there any new business?
Yes, on the bill list, I know I asked about the Garden State Coalition last week, but on the bill list, it had the Garden State Coalition had a BOE training. I didn't see that come through to the board. It's on the bills, it says BOE training.
That's probably the account that it was just charged to. Let me look.
I think it was the end of the year.
Yeah, that's the budget account it gets
$390.
charged to. It was the end of the year, the $195, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Right. There was an end of year conference that was
Dr.
attended.
And Danielle went to.
Right.
Right, and Mary Ellen Walker.
But
And
the expenditure to pay for that is charged to training and conferences.
So it wasn't a Garden State Coalition BOE training,
Well, it's Garden State Coalition, and that it was
but it
their
wasn't a board
workshop.
training that they ran.
Well, it was a conference that was attended.
That's
just-
all I'm asking.
Right,
It
that's
wasn't
just the
a
name
DOE
of,
training.
right, that's
That's all
just the
I'm
name,
asking.
that's just the name of the budget account.
It was an informational
Okay, and that's fine.
breakfast where legislators and administrators from across the state discussed the concerns with the funding formula, primarily.
And there was an error mark bill for $525 for $390. What? It's under North Media. What did we pay them $390 for?
If we do in-district events that need refreshments, then if we use Aramark, then we pay, the payment for that. That would be outside of the food service. So we encourage that if there's events in the district that require refreshments for the community or invite, people that are invited, or if it's something.
Voluntary professional
In
development, for
between the two
example.
graduations, we had them
Right.
come and give us some
But if there's things like that, we've actually encouraged everyone in the district to use our our in-house food
And
service.
we pay them?
Well, we pay, then it goes through our food service account. I mean, the check goes to Aramark, but then it funnels through our food service P&L. Instead of ordering from Talercio's or,
Do that. I was curious, why do we do that?
why would you?
Yeah, why do we encourage it to use? I don't
Because
really care. I just
because
wanna know
then the activity flows through our food service
Okay.
account instead of buying it from an outside vendor.
And it's better for us? Okay,
Yeah.
that's what
That's why
okay,
we
thank you.
encourage.
That's what I wanted to know.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, is there any other new
Yes,
business?
God bless.
Okay, then we'll open up the mic to public comment on any topic. Seeing nobody come to the mic, I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned.
Frank, there's a minimum amount of meetings that you offer without having